Greetings, everyone. It's Matt from Unbearable 73. I'm about to catch up with Masters of the Air because of the double episode they dropped. So, you'll see my episode 3, my part 3 commentary review tomorrow, basically. And then tomorrow the episode drops, and I'll have the next one up by like Saturday or Sunday. So, I'll be on time. So, let's get started. Now, if you're new to my reviews, this is not the review that you go to if you want to see if you want to watch it, so to speak, and don't want spoilers. I'm a full spoiler. I'm telling you what I think, and if you value my opinion, that's kind of what this is my reviews are for. If you value my opinion, we'll have a sort of conversation between me telling you what I think and you guys go into the comments, ask me questions and all that. You know, hopefully, maybe even someday some of you might be on videos with me talking about this stuff. So, let's get on, to quote Mills Lane. So this is episode 3 of Masters of the Air. We're not going to rehash Masters of the Air part, the third in the cycle of the Band of Brothers, the Pacific, and blah, blah, blah. Okay? So let me get into one particular flaw I've kind of talked about more and more is, and I love the show, don't get me wrong, but in Band of Brothers, which is why it's the best of the 3, you had the actual veterans commenting on what was going on and what they thought about it, so you kind of could get into it, right? You didn't need a deep, because the veterans themselves said, well, when we did this or whatever, and there was enough narration, so to speak. The Pacific didn't really have that, and obviously Master of the Air don't have that. Master of the Air's not going to be almost impossible. As of when I did the first video, there were only 119,000 U.S. people who have fought in World War II left alive, and I doubt most of all the guys who have lived through the war and in these air divisions are probably dead. So, what would have been interesting though is if they did a narrator, maybe they can get some of the surviving veterans, for example, who were in the Air Corps, if not in there, when they have the actual battles to talk about some of what's going on. Because here's the big thing, right? Now, I have 3 sources of military knowledge. I never served in the military, but a lot of my family did, especially in World War II. Okay, some Korea, Vietnam, type of stuff. So I have all of their experience they told me about. I have a lot of reading I did, especially around World War II, because every time one of my uncles told me about a World War II experience I tended to go read up on it because I was curious about that. Right? And the third, of course, are video games. And video games have, I guess the fourth would be more realistic docudrama type movies, right? But like Band of Brothers, The Pacific, and Masters of the Air. But video games in particular, like flight simulators or games like the early Battlefields, which were more realistic in terms of how you're supposed to play it and all that. Not the stupid way they've gone with purple-haired space chicks or whatever. So in the battles in Masters of the Air in particular, right? They kind of, and I'll talk about this in specifically regarding the particular battle, but the particular mission they're going on when I get to it. But unless you're familiar with the formations and the terminologies involved, you might not understand why they're doing what they're doing, the way they're flying, and all that. But if you had played combat air simulator games, or had someone who in the military was in the war who explained to you this type of stuff, or read about it, then you would. So if you don't have one of those 3 sources of knowledge, or you're probably going to be a little not flummoxed, but I like to get the word in flummoxed. Probably one of the few modern people who actually still use the word of flummoxed. But what I'm getting at is you might be a little confused by why exactly they're doing what they're doing in the air, what the patterns of flight are, like what a flying V is, why they're bombing a particular thing, why they have different types of fighters at different points escorting them, what an echelon formation is, for example, that type of stuff, So that might hurt your understanding of what's going on just a little bit. But let's get into it. I've been talking for 4 and 5 minutes already, so let's go into it. So I open up with, this is scenes from the last episode. Let me mute it, make sure the subs are on so you can kind of catch a little bit of that. So this is our briefing. We're doing a briefing, of course. If Now it's important to remember all the men you see here are the 100th, I believe. They're one particular. We get to remember the word exactly. The 100th bomb group, basically, right? So there's many other bomb groups. Like I think I want to say there's in their particular area alone, because they're involved in the mission they go on. There are 6 or 8 other bomb groups. Most fly a B-17 and some others fly a B-24. Okay. So they're getting their officer, their colonel, I believe, is giving. Yeah, he's a colonel because the majors command the planes. He's giving a briefing now that he got for his part of the mission from Superior. Now, let's just bump forward a little bit. Let's see if we see it. Okay. So let's go back a little. He's going to do the reveal. Now, I'm going to talk right now. Okay, so now they don't explain. Let's go back to touch, just a touch. Let me get it. See if we can catch it. He's going to reveal it, and then we'll talk. I'll talk a little bit. I'll stop the video and talk a little about it. Okay, so I had no relative who fought in the European Air Theater then. I had a relative who I think went in near the end of the war when it was mostly over and it got shifted over to the European Air Theater. So all these bombing runs were done by them. So remember I mentioned the last 2 episodes that these missions, these bombers run, especially the early ones, they were decimated over and over again. You know, high casualties, high plane destruction, and all that. So to quote, so that's for a couple of reasons. And this episode gives you the mission they're on, shows you the 100th Air Group and the couple air groups with them going through their mission, right? So the boys we know, our main character, the ones who make it all, whose group flies all the way to Africa there, Algiers. But they don't explain the whole broader context of why they're doing what they're doing, why it was ultimately a German victory, for example. So this mission, I had to look this up, but I know it was started with an S, but it was called. It turned out I had 2 links in the text. It's the Schweinfurt-Regensberg Air Raid, right? So I have a link from the National World War II Museum and a link from Wikipedia. The one from the National World II Museum reads better. The Wikipedia one has like more stats, so depending on where you want to go with it. And basically, the U.S. and so. I keep saying so. The going into World War I and World War II represented the transition of warfare from masses of ground troops killing each other with swords, bayonets, and like muskets and rifles, and to the industrial impact of war, large weapons, tanks, eventually planes, artillery, and so forth. And because of that, the industrial might of a country mattered. Now, at the time, going into World War II, you may have heard of modern times, like the G7, I think it's called now. They are the 7 industrial bases of the world, according to that group, right? Going into World War II, the industrial base of the world was the U.S., Britain, because Canada was still part of England at the time, Britain at the time, France, Germany, and Russia might have become an industrial base, but then I'm not 100% sure. But those 4. Eventually, China, Japan, Canada, and South Africa all become for a while, but then South Africa falls out because of modern problems, whatever, right? But what that means is these countries have the ability to industrial capabilities to build all their own stuff and then output, and then tremendously increase their output to support other countries, right? That's why it's relevant here. So they tend to drive. They tend to be energy independent, at least initially. So they tend to drive the industrial effect of the world. And in this particular case, the U.S. the main thing it did for years before it even got involved in the war was supplying the Chinese, the Russians, the British, all lots and lots of materials and supplies. So the Germans will try to intercept that stuff with U-boats across the ocean and all that. and they would try to blow that stuff up with air raids and all. But the Germans, because they were the most advanced military in the world at the time, and they had the most advanced industrial, they had a tremendous industrial advantage. Pound for pound, almost every German piece of equipment was better than almost every non-German piece of equipment. In particular, German planes had longer ranges, they were more durable. Germans could produce more fighters that had longer ranges, blah, blah, blah. There's a really good movie called Fury with Brad Pitt, which kind of shows that basically like every one German tank could take out like 4 or 5 American tanks, that type of stuff. So there was that. And the other aspect of this, I know we'll belabor in this, but is all of the tactics associated with those industrial warfare were still being developed. So you heard in the first part that the British thought about nighttime mass bombing, was the American wanted to do daytime precision bombing. And because, one, the British had been bombed so much by Germany, they didn't care really who they killed anymore. They just wanted to stop the German war effort. And two, the Allies wanted, of course, kill less civilians, right? Or at least the Americans did. And two, the Americans didn't want to waste. The Americans always had an idea of more precision with attacks, so you waste less materials. It's carried through our military doctrine since we began around this time, right? So you got that bit of knowledge in you now. So where does that leave us, right? So the U.S. has the idea for this daytime attack. He mentions the 3 waves, right? Well, there's more than 3 waves, right? There's a feint going to, which you don't even see on the map. There's a feint going in one way to try to draw the German air defenses, the German Luftwaffe, to the coast, for example. There's propaganda being planted by the resistance. There's all sorts of stuff going on to try to maximize the chance of success of this raid. And on paper, the raid makes sense. If the raid succeeded fully, they would have blown up more than they did. They did do a lot of damage, right? They affected the German war machine for a couple of months. But the Germans, because they were all industrialized, had mass amounts of supplies already ready to go to cover until they could replace this stuff, right? So ultimately, this was considered a German victory because the American air bomb forces were devastated, right? They were just devastated after this, like total all the deaths and destruction. They were just weakened, and they had to do another raid on this place that suffered the same consequences. And ultimately, what happened is the American air leadership was kicked out. They were changed over with people who had a better idea that you have, because they were very stubborn about not ensuring, like, for example, you hear in the episode that the other 2 wings of the attack were delayed by 3 hours, but they let the first one go anyway. How the fighter protection was delayed, but they let them go anyway. You can't do that. You have to have the proper setup, and you delay your entire strategy to account for that. You don't just say, they can do it anyway, and So that's kind of like what you need to know to understand all the mechanics of what's going on in this episode, right? So let's get into it. Sorry about that big spiel. So he's talking about how one group of theirs will fly past the 2 sites they're going to bomb and head all the way south to Algiers. He explains the part of the plan that they want to relate to the audience, basically about the 3 bomb wings and the feint. But there's other stuff, like I said. So this is it. I honestly thought the first 10 minutes of the episode was a little boring, only because I thought they should have explained more of the battle somehow, which is why I mentioned earlier that when they're actually in the air, maybe getting some of the soldiers to drop some narration or something could really sort of help put in a picture what the airmen were going through. And so they're prepping. They're waiting to be given the go by their command because there's weather and all at stake. And like I said, they're given the go before the other wings and the fighter shield, which is stupid. It's one of the reasons they lost so many, because the commanders and the generals don't understand this type of warfare yet. Now we got our theme, which is a nice theme. And then right across, they're in the air. So right here, you can see they're flying particular formations, right? So these formations that are done so when you hear them say when they lose some planes later, well, they're gonna move up to the tail formation or something like that. That's because these planes align so they can defend each other with their guns, with the gunners, and basically because it's hard for any individual gunner to hit them, but if 4 or 5 guys are shooting and saturating air with bullets, they can take the planes out and have a decent chance at them. Also, there's only one mention of it in here. The Germans had actually begun to deploy an air, I believe it was an air-to-air rocket or something. So that was kind of, if I remember correctly, don't quote me, I'm not a genius expert, I'm just saying going off of memory. If I remember correctly, that also was particularly devastating. They do mention it, I think, once here that the Germans firing a rocket. So this is a flak, and that's not the big threat. So they'll get hit a little bit from that, but not too much. It's a beautiful shot. Now I think let me go back a little. So let me see. So I think that the planes in reality would be flying further apart, but they show the number of planes in the proportional formation. They're closer than they normally would be. Okay, I think they're doing that for the audience. And here we got the gunners have to defend against the fighters coming in. And of course, the key is given to abandon ship, so to speak, abandon a plane. Now you notice before that they dropped their bombs ahead of time, even though they weren't near the area, because if you have to do a crash landing, you don't want the bombs on there because you don't want them to explode. The one thing they will destroy on that crash landing, which you'll see mentioned later in the last plane, is the Allies, while they didn't have an industrial advantage over the Germans, the Americans especially had a tech advantage. We were developing high tech that the Germans had no counter for, and including the optics here. So they're not showing it here, but if they're abandoning the plane, they would have been told to destroy the optics and the intelligence associated with it, which you'll see happen later on some of the other. Like he destroyed the intelligence, but I don't think we saw him destroy the optics. Now this is a tragedy. He's trapped in the hatch underneath, and there's really nothing you could do. You have a couple minutes maybe to try to get him out, like he says, but then there's nothing you could do for him. I mean, if you don't have the ability to get that thing open fast, because this plane's going down. In fact, I think the plane they'd drag this out a bit for the purposes of the tragic scene, but and I know some of my relatives who went through this with some guys. Like guys they knew they maybe would have been able to save but they had to leave them under fire because, the Germans would have killed them too, or and I mean it hurts these guys, man. I mean I'm not a soldier, and I could almost feel a little bit of the horror of these guys, seeing their friends, the guys they're fighting with, knowing there's nothing they could do about it, and you guys begging and. Now the reports are getting back to the commanders how devastated they are. So he's told his guys to abandon ship, abandon the plane. Then he finds out his co-pilot's still alive, and so he tries to save him by landing the plane. And again, we're seeing the specifics of what's going on, and that's great. Right, this is a beautiful shot right there. I honestly shouldn't make that my thumbnail, but I like the shot I got a little better. And we're seeing a beautiful shot of this stuff, and I just wish they gave the audience who's watching this a little more context of what's going on in the whole mission somehow. I mean, I'm not a filmmaker. I just would have liked to have a little I always got a sense in Band of Brothers, more so than the Pacific and Masters of the Air, that they were telling us in a broader sense what was going on in each of the episodes. So now I believe we're coming with they made it through that initial flak, So now they're over the ocean, and those who are trying to make it to Algiers. One plane lands 350 miles out to sea. So those guys, if they're lucky, they get picked up. If not, they're dead. This guy, his parachute, he landed in Belgium, and he gets hooked up with the Belgian resistance, and we get a cliffhanger as to what is he going to choose to become a prisoner and covered by the Geneva Conventions, or is he going to undercover with the guerrillas and become considered a spy by the Germans if he's caught. Obviously, if you watch the trailer, the scenes of next episode, and these are the guys who made it through to Algeria. Now, they don't depict this. They only depict this with one plane, but these planes were very low on fuel, right? And they landed as soon as they got close. They landed wherever they could. I want to say like half the planes didn't make it to the runway. They had a safe crash land or land in fields and stuff, right? So he's kissing that globe he got from the previous navigator. And then they were told to lighten the load, I believe, at some point. We'll see it. So the last plane out is, of course, our hero's plane. And they lightened the load. Let's see if I can catch it. It's while they're out of the ocean. Yeah, this is it. So you see that they're abandoning as much way as possible to stretch their fuel out, right? And this is where they reference the piece of equipment, that piece of equipment, which was they did not want the Germans to get that because that would have given them a big advantage because it would have severely enhanced the Germans' capabilities. So the episode presents the Schweinfurt-Regensberg air raid, but really presents only the perspective of the 100th. And doesn't really give you a sense of, I would say, the whole mission. And I would have liked that. I still enjoyed the episode, but in some respects, it's my least enjoyable of the three. Meaning, like, the first two are like 9 out of 10s. This is like a 7, 8 out of 10. Only because, like I said, for personal preference, it would have been nice to have that, have that reference. Okay. I thought this would be like a 45-minute episode, but it's 42 minutes. So what else can we say? Well, I want to see if I could share out so we can get... this is a public document, so I shouldn't get hit for this one. I have a link to this webpage that I'm going to add here. Window capture. Call it Brave. Now let's see if this works the way I intend. I don't know if the audio is going to make it through. I'll turn desktop audio on and shut. They have closed captions? Yeah, they do. They have closed captions, so I don't know if the audio is going to make it through on this. So this is the official bomb damage assessment.
These are the gutted ruins of Schweinfurt, one of the most heavily attacked and bitterly defended cities in the entire Nazi industrial complex. To Allied planners aiming at destruction of the Luftwaffe and the slowing up of enemy war production, Schweinfurt was a #1 priority target. Here were manufactured the ball bearings, without which neither aircraft nor machinery could operate. In a two-pronged strike on 17th August 1943, the AAF carried out its first heavy strategic attack against Germany. Major objective for that day was destruction of the ball bearing plants at Schweinfurt. On 14th October, we struck again. Subsequent attacks continued until the following spring. The Nazi offered fanatic resistance. Our losses for the first two missions alone were 90 bombs.
Yeah.
But by April 1944, the Nazis had lost an industry.
So what they're glossing over a bit there is the Nazi. It was a German victory for the first two raids, but then the new leaders came in, figured out how to do it properly, and basically were able to then take out the German industry, right? So anyway, I really enjoyed this episode. Not as much as the first two. Like I said, it's a 7 to 8. I'm gonna say I'll say an 8.3-ish out of 10. Maybe an 8. Right in there, like a 7 to 8, 7.8 to 8.2, right in that sort of range. You know, I can nitpick it a little more and knock it down to the high 7s, or I could ignore those and go into low 8s. But, I mean, like I said, my major concerns, I would like to see more of them describing the battle. In any case, my name is Matt. This has been on Ripple 73, my review of Part 3 of Masters of the Air. I'll be back here for Part 4. Thank you all, and have a nice day. Comment down below. Share this video if you can. That helps me a lot. I have good channel growth lately. Like if you like, and reach out to social media. I'll cheers chatting with you.